governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. He came to Nigeria, and we seized the opportunity to really grab a bit of him. So Dr. Njoroge is a veteran when it comes to digital finance. And that is why the topic for this afternoon is leadership in financial innovation, driving Africa's economic transformation. So he's seen it all, from the IMF to the United Nations. So he is a leader when it comes to digital finance. And this is an opportunity for us to really listen to him this afternoon, especially when we are passing through a new phase in African development. The multinationals are leaving us. It's not just a Nigerian reality. I think it's happening all over Africa. In Kenya, many multinationals have left, and some are threatening to leave. In Nigeria, we know so many that have left. In Ghana, it's the same story all over Africa. So what's going on? I think it will help to make sense of all of that. But beyond that also, we've seen a lot of financial innovation, especially payment systems. And that's one of the things he did as the central bank governor in Kenya. He strengthened the digital payment system in Kenya. So, well, from an economic point of view, I think that's a very important thing to do. Financial inclusion and enabling, removing the constraints to payment movement in Africa, increasing the mobility. I think that is very important. But then we need to link it to economic growth and economic transformation of our continent. And that's what we'll also be hearing from Dr. Njoroge. So, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome him to the stage. Please. As you come in, please take your seat very close by. We still have some empty spots in front. You could still fill it up. Thank you. My name is Bongo Ade. I know that we have met one way or the other, and I'm a professor of economics here. Thank you. Yes, that's for you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much, sir. And yeah, thank you for coming to LBS. You've been at the helm of affairs when it comes to finance, economics. Curiously, in Kenya, the youth protested because of your president's visit to IMF. The finance bill, and they said he's too much in bed with the IMF. And I think some people in Nigeria also of that opinion relative to our government. So there is some sort of aversion to IMF these days in Africa. Maybe not just Africa, to the developing world. What is the problem? You're an IMF veteran. You've also been at the central bank. So what do you think is, giving rise to this sort of aversion to IMF all over Africa especially?
Thank you very much for your question. But before answering the question, maybe I should express my gratitude for the invitation to be here. It's the first time for me to be in Nigeria, therefore the first time to be in Lagos, therefore the first time to be in Lagos Business School. So anyway, so.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
There's so much I've learned in the last few days I've been here. And for me, it's a learning sort of experience. And I want to continue with that, maybe like anyone else. So now, in terms of the question, it's good that you started with that, because I'm sure in most people's minds, they've seen it on TV, CNN, the protests, etc. and the connection, as you say, with the IMF and connection with many other things. But just to put it, let's say to summarize what's going on, basically we have had the young people, so-called Gen Z. A lot of you are in that category, I'm sure. They've been quite upset about some proposals to increase taxes or tax measures that were going to be put or put in the finance bill for this fiscal year. This is part of the regular, let's say, budgeting. It happens in all countries in terms of the fiscal budget, etc. But they were very upset with those measures because they felt that those measures were disproportionate, that they were very painful. They landed on them and the poor, heavily. Secondly, there has been underlying concerns about the high cost of living. And, those two things are things that I'm sure are not just specific to Kenya. High cost of living, even in the advanced economies, that has been a big concern, right? And poverty rates are rising, etc. But at the same time, the concern was that even as maybe there was a need to raise revenues to pay debt, the concern was also, why is it that we are not cutting expenditures? Why is it that you need to balance that equation? Why is it that you just want to raise revenues? And at the same time, there were concerns that the expenditures that were being undertaken were wasteful. And it doesn't, so you have a lot of waste in government. And then you have, let's say, the politicians, the political class that were flaunting their wealth. So here, people are under pressure. And here the politicians sort of on TikTok doing their thing, showing, their latest watches, their latest trip to Dubai and car, etc. So it didn't sit well with anybody, not just the Gen Zs. So anyways, so that is really the background, and indeed there were protests which led to eventually the reversal, meaning the withdrawal of the proposal, the tax bill, the finance bill, and some protests continued, and this has led to the, let's say, dismissing of the entire cabinet, well, except one of the ministers. And yes, there'll be more protests. I'm told that tomorrow there'll be even more protests. The point is that is something that is still ongoing. But I think what is clear is everybody in the country has sort of gotten a piece of that action, meaning they are very vocal about what they like, what they don't want. Just one little thing that has happened, I don't know what happens here. Ministers would drive around and push us off the road. I don't know if it happens that way here. Maybe you don't see them that often, right?
That is our everyday reality.
Okay, so that used to be our everyday reality. But now, before they were sent away, it had become clear that they cannot do that. And people stood their ground and said, no, you're not going to overtake me. Even I am in a rush, so stay in line like everyone else, So when I go through the airport, I have always done this, but anyway, you have to wait like everyone else, queue, line up like everyone else. So there's a bit of discipline of government of the political class. So that's really all I can say. Now, the IMF part, the idea, the accusation is that the proposals were provided by the IMF. I don't know. I'm not going to say yes or no. But what is clear is that whatever you do in the policy space, you need to bring your population along. Gone are the times when you would say, well, I know best. I'm the Minister of Finance, I know best. This is what we're going to do, and take it or leave it. This is my proposal, and you're just going to accept it. So you need to actually communicate with the population. And to me, that's one big element that we as policymakers have had to learn. Communication is not an add-on. It is actually part of the main. Yeah? So if you put together whatever you're doing and you don't have a good communication policy, and it's not just saying we have written a paper about it, we have written a press release, it's actually talking to the people that this policy will actually apply to, the people that are going to take the burden of the policy, or even the positive side. So that to me is the firm lesson, and it is clear that this was not communicated.
I think IMF, International Monetary Fund, the objective for its being is actually financial stability. But I think what we've seen in many countries, especially in Africa in recent times, is instability, especially when it comes to the various countries' exchange rates. In Nigeria, I think it's something that has become so worrisome, even as we speak, on a day-to-day basis. Our currency, local currency, keep losing value. And then, of course, our government hasn't stopped borrowing money from the IMF specifically. I don't know if that's the case in Kenya, but I know that weakening currency has been the issue for many African countries. And sometimes it appears that the central bank doesn't have the right response or is somehow challenged in responding adequately to this. So from your own experience, what do you think is going on? Because it's not just a Nigerian problem alone, it's all over Africa. I just mentioned that multinationals are leaving. Part of the reason is the dwindling purchasing power, okay, of the local currencies. So what do you think is not happening?
Good question. I think the first thing to say is exchange rate is one of the key prices in an economy. It's one of, it's not the only price. The other prices, interest rate, for instance, the regular price of goods, etc. So the other markets, money market as well, and for you, you can imagine even the labor market, right? So if you are thinking now in a technically, what you are telling me is that the market for foreign exchange is one-sided, yeah? So it's not clearing, and that's why the price is going up, etc., etc. Actually, I can tell you of another market that's not clearing, which is labor market. That's why you have all the issues in terms of unemployment, etc., right? We can go on like that. We can talk about even the market for housing, which also may not be clearing in a lot of our countries. But however, on a day-to-day basis, it is true that the exchange rate is the most visible price, yeah, that we see and is reported in the newspapers, etc. And so I do understand the concern, but I put it this way because we need to, what is important is that we should have macro stability in an economy. You can hold the exchange rate artificially wherever it is, just like you can hold the price of housing somewhere by dictate, right? You just, you're the president, you're the minister or whatever, and say, from now on, the prices will be this. So you can hold it artificially, but that does not mean that that is the market, that is the price that will clear the market. So my point is actually what you see there is a symptom of underlying problems that are much more endemic or hidden. meaning the macroeconomic, the entire framework, something isn't right. So the first responsibility of policymakers is really to have macro stability. And you can beat them up about anything else, but that is the first thing they need to get right. And in a sense, you have many markets, as I explained, and all of them have to be in balance or close to balance for things to be stable. I don't want to talk too much about this, but I would also want to let you know that there are many types of, let's say, exchange rate arrangements, right? You have, for instance, you could look at our brothers in the CFA franc zone, both zones, and they have a pegged rate, pegged to the euro. Yeah, I forget what it is, 2.7 or something like that, some number like that. And you have others that have a floating regime. The choice of regime is not academic. It has real implications on the economy. And, but for some of us, i.e. politicians, it's easy to say, I have fixed the exchange rate, therefore I have won the battle. And clearly, it's like saying, I'm not going to take, so you're sick, let's say. And the doctor says, I'm only going to take his, let's say, measure his temperature, right? Take his temperature once a week, yeah? Obviously, during the week, he doesn't know what's going on. He says, no, I haven't, the problem has been resolved. I'll know if it is not resolved in a week, But in a week, you may be dead. Sure. So I think the point I'm making here is that that choice is not academic, and you may or may not, let's say, let go of a lot of information that it gives you. So from a day-to-day basis. So my point in all this is, it's true, here in Nigeria, there has been a lot of discussion of the exchange rate, etc. But again, remember, it is coming from a place where there were many imbalances in the economy, right? The money market wasn't clearing, yeah? There were controls on the exchange rate. It was not available to you. Then you had all the, let's say, the informal exchange markets. The first thing that I noticed when I came out at the airport.
Black markets.
Well, I don't know. We don't call it black market, do we? It's just informal market, right? I mean, you come out and there's a guy there who flashed a wad of cash, and it was all tied in polythene. I was quite surprised, I thought he was giving it to me, but yeah, I mean, how else, why would he come and sort of like next to me, show me this, flash this word, Anyway, you don't see that in Kenya. And there are other countries that actually had that. For instance, Uganda. Uganda, you had barefoot, we call them barefoot foreign exchange traders. The guys didn't have a calculator, they were barefoot, they were in tatters, but they could tell you what the price is today, Kenya shillings versus DRC franc, Kenya shilling versus Uganda shilling. I mean, so there was a whole business, let's say, a business that sprouted there. I want to finish with the following thing. I worry as an economist and somebody who is interested in the development of Kenya, when our best minds go into what I would just call trading. So particularly foreign exchange. Now I'm saying that because some of your colleagues have opened, foreign exchange things, and they're, trading these things, right? And some of you are told, oh, come on, trade on the
exchanges,
on the app and things
Forex.
Like that. I worry because really the best minds should not be going to that. Yeah, we should be going into productive sort of activities where you create wealth and then employ others. That's how the country is going to go forward. You don't go forward by just, remember, at the end of the day, what you are doing is you're just eating the, let's say, the rent. You know, I'm sure you all understand what I mean by that, yeah? Those margins, right? Yeah, so what then happens when the margin goes to almost nothing, you know? So I think it is important for you to understand that I think your calling should be in more productive industries. That's what we need for Africa. You didn't come to this school just to go out there and become a foreign exchange trader, you know? No, I think you came to do more. You know, your calling is to higher and greater things. I sorry to tell you this, but yesterday I spent the day at the refinery, the new oil refinery. It's an amazing piece of work, yeah? I mean, sure, the man could have spent the money trading. He should have gotten money. He could put all that money in a bank account and earn 2% of it. I mean, it's like what, 500 billion US dollars. I mean, he could have been sitting pretty, just earning the interest. But I think this plant will change Nigeria. It will change Africa as well. To me, that's what you're called to be. That, as opposed to just sitting around a desk and trading.
Trading.
Yeah.
Well, I think people respond to incentive. That's an economic principle, where they see quick money, and that's where they go. It's part of the aberration.
Do you mind if I cut you there?
Why not?
This is a big issue, and this is a two-handed intervention. Incentives. How many of you think incentives drive the world? Let's just see. You, after all, you're in a business school. How many of you think incentives drive the world? Okay, we have a few. We need a few brave things. I mean, what have they've been teaching you? It's all incentives, right? Incentives. If I want you to work, I give you some incentives. Incentives, right? I pay you more, I pay you less. So you want people to be in a particular job, pay them more, then they go there, pay them less. What is the most powerful driver of human beings? I'm asking. You must have gone to school. Is it money? Man, I thought we were engaging you in a conversation. The point I want to make is that this incentive jargon is the wrong paradigm. What drives you? What drives a human being to do the great? Think of the people that climbed Everest. What incentives did they have? I'm talking of the first guys that climbed, yeah? Last year was the 50th anniversary. Were they paid money at the end of it? Is that what really drove them to be up there? I mean, they overcame all sorts of risks. All sorts of risks. Yeah? To be there. I mean, they didn't have whatever. Now, it's true, we look at Elon Musk and we say, okay, money, you know, he's rolling in it. But Elon Musk and people like that are the wrong model for us. That's not the model you need to look at. You should look at no, I'm serious. If anybody wants to challenge that, I'll give you the microphone, you challenge me on that. Yeah? To me, it's inconceivable that at the end of our life, you are asked when you die, what did you do? What did you do with all the talents you got?
I made money.
What's that? And then what? Do we bury you with the money?
You know,
I have had people, yeah? I'm getting passionate about this. I've had to deal with people who are dying at the end of their lives. Yeah? And it wasn't, how much more, you should have paid me more. It wasn't that. They were more interested in other things, much different from just money. So we go back to this example of climbing mountains. If I want you to climb Everest, the names was Hillary and Tenzin, the first guys, May of 1950, whatever year it is, 53 I think it was. So it was the 70th anniversary just recently, last year. Or even the people that went to the moon. What is it that drove them? Some incentive? Were they paid more by NASA? Yeah? Or think of the people that have done, think of the presidents of our countries who put their life on the line. I'm talking of independence. Put their life on the line. What did they put their life on the line for? Money? So colleagues, it's not money that drives you the most. It's good to have money. Yeah? I mean, to make sure that you pay your bills and things like that. But that is the least issue that you should be concerned with.
Okay. I know what you said kind of challenges, and you know it, because economic theory is founded on the premise of rationality. And then, rationality is the economic rationality. That is the pillar of economic theory. And how do we define rationality? To be rational means that you are taking an action that rewards you the most. So when you have weighed all the alternatives, we take the one that rewards you. Reward is payment. And that's, incentive. So, but what you said kind of challenges that. And I'm like, firms, the major objective in economics, firms, we try to maximize the firm profit function subject to, the usual constraints. At the individual subjective level, the individual decision maker tries to, again, maximize the utility function subject to the budget constraint. So, and that's what drives, the economic theory. I mean, prices are also determined within this framework, the equilibrium. So, but when you go that way, then I love what you said. But then, how do we
square the circle?
Exactly.
Okay, simple. The paradigm that you teach as a professor, you teachers, or we were taught, it's a paradigm. Yeah? And it is, think of the paradigm of perfect equilibrium, the perfect equilibrium, right?
Yes.
Actually, is there a market that actually has perfect equilibrium?
Of course, none.
Of course not. So why are you teaching me perfect equilibrium then? If you know for sure there's not a single market that I'll ever come across, the reason you're teaching me that is so that it's part of the building blocks of my understanding of how things fit together. So it's a, let's say, boiled down version of things, of reality. But reality is not Lego blocks. Does that mean anything? Lego blocks to you guys?
Yeah.
So it's not Lego blocks, yeah? So the reality is much more complicated. So I think the point I'm making is it's okay to learn those things, but then you need to build them more. Yeah, to realize that reality is actually a bit more complicated. So I made the point that what drives people the most is not those financial incentives that we talk so much about. Sure, it's good to have those financial incentives, but I think the point is they are, in my view, I'll put them at maximum 20%. Maximum 20%. The 80% is a bit like the iceberg. Yeah, so you see only 10% of the incentives, that drive it. But you have 90% of other things, yeah? Talk about the examples I gave you. And let me put it this way. If you talk to somebody, a successful businessman who is honest, I'm not going to tell you who are the dishonest businessmen and women. They are there, and we know them. and they tell you, listen, when I was beginning this project, I knew for sure what the outcomes were. They would be lying. If you are beginning a project, more often than not, you don't even know 10% of what you're going to deal with. Yeah? I mean, it's like everything else, a relationship. Yeah? Most of you have relationships, or most of you are married. I mean, when you begin, there's a whole business of, there are many things, there are many unknowns. Yeah? So, in a sense, you have the known knowns, and then you have the unknown knowns, and then you have the unknown unknowns. Yeah? So, the known knowns are, that's your building blocks. Those are the Lego things. Yes. Yeah? Then you have the unknown knowns. Yeah? Yes. And those are the things that you have seen in others, but you don't know how to deal with. Then you have the unknown unknowns, which stuff happens, yeah, to put it mildly. And you have to deal with that stuff, right? So I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, I like the known knowns, known unknowns, and the unknown unknown.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually talking about that earlier today in class, the aleatoric probability, epistemic uncertainty.
Exactly.
And then the Knightian uncertainty, the unknown unknown. Anyway, so let's get back to the meat of the matter today, which is on payments. So at the bank in Kenya, so you actually strengthened out the payment system in Kenya. Kenya has been used as a good example of payment system modernization and innovation, especially the M-Pesa and so on. Yeah, I'm sure that everybody wants to know more about the payment system. But again, talking about forex trading and all those fintechs, the CBN governor, Mr. Cardoso, Nigeria's central bank governor, the other day said that fintechs and some of these financial innovation systems are making monetary policy, making difficult in Africa. So, which for me, I was thinking that it should be positive, and then that the central bank needs to maybe, rise up in their game to really, fit into the transformations that the fintechs are creating. So, but how do you see that?
Thank you. So maybe the summary on the payment system is true. Kenya, in a sense, is a leader in this sort of payments, the M-Pesa. We are leaders in other things as well. So let's be clear. If there's anybody who wants to run long distance after this, we can just go and deal with it. 10K maybe, Anyway, so, but I think on the M-Pesa thing, this started in 2006. And the whole point is that you can make a transaction using, well, maybe it benefited from two things. One is from the need. There was a need to send money to somebody else. In the olden days, before it came into place, people in the city sending money back home, you had to go to the bus stop, give an envelope to the conductor, and pray that he delivers it where you told him. And often, the issues. Trust in terms of handing over these things. So sending money home. And then, of course, somebody came up with this idea of, some people had the cell phones, or whatever you call them here, the mobile phones, and sort of having a platform on that you could actually send a message, and then the other person on the other side, a secure message, will provide the money, etc. Actually, to be honest, that's how virtually all payment systems work. Think of SWIFT. SWIFT is is a sort of underlying all international transactions. And that's what it is. It's a messaging system, really. but underlying it, there's also money, etc. So this one expanded because in the end, the mobile phones are ubiquitous. Just like, I don't know the penetration rate here, but in Kenya, it's like 130%.
I think
so more people, what's that?
We should be more.
130?
Nigeria, yes.
Okay. So, but on the other hand, what has happened is this also became, ubiquitous. People are using it, etc. So it has really been beneficial. So, for instance, today now I can get a call from, let's say, my sister, and then she says, "Look, I'm at this store. Yeah, could you send me X?" And right from here, well, it won't be in front of you. I'll probably just go down there so you don't see my password, right? Yeah. So I'll do the thing and boom. Yeah. And within a second or two, she's in Kenya, she'll get the money. Yeah. Anyway, so that is what has developed. Now, it has really expanded, and a lot of us have, or in other countries, we've tried to put it in place, or in some sense, taking it. Not so much, well, domesticating it in all those jurisdictions, and I think that has been really nice. Now, it has also complicated, as your governor has said, monetary policy. But I would say monetary policy gets complicated by all developments in terms of that are happening in the financial sector. So you cannot have a static monetary policy. So as these other elements develop, you could think of, for instance, now technically you could think of velocity, yeah, and or the multiplier for those of you that are into this business. Those numbers are changing because of new innovation. Innovation changes that. And so you have to calibrate monetary policy. Yeah? So think of, for instance, anything. It's anything else.
So velocity, that's the speed at which money changes hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the definition of monetary velocity. And theoretically, it's supposed to be constant over,
it shouldn't be constant.
It shouldn't be constant.
There goes another paradigm,
exactly.
Right? So you are thinking MV is equal to PT, etc., yes. Right? So that's a problem. The V is changing.
The quantity theory.
Interest rates also change that.
Exactly.
So my point is, you should be aware that you have all these dials in front of you, right? And the dials are changing. Yeah. So meaning you need to adjust them. Yeah? So you cannot just say, well, I have set the dials at this level. Reality has to match my dials. Monetary policy or central banking is really about knowing what's happening there. Yeah? Again, we go back to these known knowns. Yeah? And dealing with also the unknown knowns. And knowing that every now and then you're going to be hit by an unknown, like, for instance, COVID. Yeah? So you're sitting there minding your own business, and boom, the economy gets slammed by COVID. So my point is that monetary policy is not static. And we have been doing that all the time. We actually wrote a paper about that, precisely testing and therefore adjusting monetary policy based on and again, adjusting monetary policy, meaning the framework, right? Now, for you actually have a long way to go. Why? Because even the basics of, let's say, interest rate, let's say inflation targeting, etc., it's only now that you're getting there. Why? The sort of, let's say, the underpinnings, we go back to what you'd say the paradigms that you have thought about.
Well, the paradigms haven't changed. That's a problem.
No. The paradigm I was going to, if you are thinking of, for instance, inflation targeting, yes. For it to be effective, there are certain things that need to be in place. There are actually 4 specific things that need to be in place. And one of them is that you should have a flexible exchange rate regime. So in effect, it has been a problem for Nigeria to fully adopt that, because its exchange rate has not been providing.
Yeah, market's
so
reflective.
I'm making the point that it's a journey. And all policymakers, all central bankers are on a journey. And we are happy if we make progress in it, rather than saying, okay, we are stuck where we are.
Thank you very much. We understand. Usually, technology moves, and then policy tries to catch up. So policies are always playing catch up with technological transformations.
I disagree.
Really?
I disagree. I think that's a caricature of policymakers.
Really?
If there's something that I think policymakers have been given a bad rep, is on that. Yeah? So here I am. Yeah, I'm going to give you gangster vibes, for those of you that are into this business. Yeah? No. It is true that policymakers could be sitting there and not knowing what is coming. One of the things that I did when I was the central bank governor is having a very robust relationship with the developers. And I understood what is it that they are producing, understood what space they are acting in. Now, not just me, I'm talking of the entire team. So we had a good sense. What we cannot do is to play as developers.
Okay.
Yeah? But what is coming, so we understood each other. For instance, when this project was brought to the central bank, the M-Pesa, before it was licensed, I mean, there wasn't actually a law under which it could have been licensed. So an agreement was sought between them. And indeed, why? Because they explained what is it that they were going to do, how it was going to do. The risks were clearly outlined. As you started off talking about financial stability. So the financial stability risks were well outlined. And there was an understanding if things went south, if stuff happened, we'd stop things. And then we'll deal with it appropriately. So I think it is one of understanding who is doing what. Yeah, the rules.
But even at that, because I think, especially in this age, technology moves very fast. Disruption. Let me bring in cryptocurrency. I'm sure that cryptos are all over the place before some central banks started to respond. And then one of the measures some banks have come up with is the central bank digital currencies. So, when you look at such kind of development, you may conclude, like I did, that whether it is financial or monetary or technology policy, that they kind of play catch-up to
I
technology.
Don't understand.
So let's look at cryptocurrencies. That come up.
Explain to me. Explain to
Yes.
me. How do you have seen, explain to me how things would have been different if they were not playing catch-up. You've made the point that central banks, policymakers are playing catch-up. So explain to me in one space, whichever one you choose.
Yes, so I take cryptocurrency.
Okay, so let's say they are not playing catch-up. How would it have been different?
Okay, so, I wouldn't know because none of us,
or you didn't know,
the policymakers, nor myself as an academic,
no, then
knew what was coming up. So
then why are you making?
We saw cryptocurrency, we saw blockchain, we saw AI, and then next, the banks are now releasing policies on how the actors in these spaces are to play. So that's what I mean.
No, I don't think then your claim is supported by what you said. So if indeed you could tell me what you would have wanted to see in order to say that, yes, they are not playing catch-up, they are on the ball. It's very easy to make those claims. I've been there. So I'm challenging you. Tell me, what would I have done different?
I'm not.
Wait.
Anybody.
Maybe I should finish. Let me finish and then you jump on it. Yeah? So if it is a doctor, yeah, I have a patient and I do whatever I need to do with the patient. And let's say the patient passes away. Okay, you tell me. I need you to tell me. You're telling me I've been a bad doctor. You need to tell me what is it I needed to do from your perspective. Your perspective is you should not have killed the patient. I tell you, I didn't kill the patient. I did my best within the limits of my knowledge. So, what is it that I would have done? No, to me, that is the question.
I'm not taking any position, and I'm not claiming to be an expert or in the know of what disruption is coming. I wouldn't know. You mentioned the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. So sometimes disruption is an unknown unknown. Nobody knows. Neither you, the central banker, nor me, the academician. Okay. But maybe the person who may have any idea will be the developer. So it's an but let's leave that, by the way.
No. I don't want to leave that. I need you to understand. I don't want to leave that. I need you to understand three things. First, it's dangerous to make statements without appropriate data. That is something that, in my view, should not be allowed in terms of, the discourses of something. So if you have to make a statement, please back it up with data. I hope your students have that sense as well. Yeah? If you're going to make a statement in your paper, please back it up. Have a footnote that explains that. That's the first point. Secondly, going back to this issue of technology, you're absolutely right. Technology, we don't know what's coming over the hill, as it were. Nobody really has a sense of that. It's moving. But that doesn't mean we don't have a sense of what to do. It's like you have a boat, right? You're crossing the ocean. You don't know which wave is going to come, is going to hit you. But you have a sense of what you're doing. And you believe that within the limits of your navigation tools, you can cross from here to the Americas or whatever it is. So in effect, which is my third point, it's clarity about, which is what the central bankers or more generally policymakers are very clear about, is what are the concerns? That is what the central bankers and policymakers are very clear about. I can tell you it's generally two things for central bankers. One is stability, financial stability. You don't want, whatever happens, you don't want to end up having a significant instability in the system. Yeah? It's true, people can make money or whatever. You just dropped the point about the Bitcoin and all those other things, cryptocurrency. We've written about this, and it is widely written about the risks, the financial stability risks that actually would bring or could bring. That doesn't mean that every single transaction has that same risk, but it's a general point that has to be dealt with. And then, of course, the point is that you allow innovation because there are benefits that could come from it. It doesn't mean that everybody knows how much the benefit is. As a matter of fact, you don't know. I don't know if any of you are like me, when you were in grad school, we calculated the benefits, let's say, of open trade policy, right? It was just something like 2% of GDP. That's the number I remember, 2% of GDP. And you calculate the benefits of financial inclusion, it's actually not that much. However, actually in reality, it moves GDP by much more. The point is that there are other things, there are other ways we benefit that when you did your general equilibrium model or whatever it is, you did not incorporate. So I'm making the point, the benefits are huge, but the risks are there. And that's what we deal with. So central bankers, the business of central banking is all about risk management.
Thank you very much. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a round of applause in order. That's an impassioned discussion. Let me open it up to the audience if you have any comments, any question. So this is your opportunity. Thank you very much. All right. So just your name, institutional affiliation, and then your question. Please go straight to the point.
Thank you very much. My name is Olayode Agbola from Lagos Business School here. You've spoken a lot about central bank trying to achieve the primary mandate of financial stability. The question I want to ask is, in trying to balance to strike a balance between financial innovation and financial stability, are there any rules for regulatory sandboxes, especially in the African landscape? Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question. Before answering your question, I want to clarify that central banking, the two specific mandates for modern central banking are inflation, so price stability, and then financial stability. So those are the two. We haven't mentioned price stability, but it is essential. It's actually the first one, yeah? So thank you for your question and allowing me to clarify. So going back to the thing, are there any hard, fast rules? No. And from a point of view of balancing innovation with, let's say, the other mandates, inflation, or, well, not inflation, price stability and financial stability, particularly financial stability, there are no hard, fast rules. This is where judgment comes in. Yeah? Judgment is very important. And in effect, judgment is also a continuum, right? It's very easy to say no. Yeah? Say, no, well, why do you need to be so? Maybe you test it a little and see and understand. Maybe you didn't know how it actually impacts or calibrate the impact on financial stability. You understand? So that's when you put it in a so-called sandboxing. Yeah, sandbox and understand it and give it some data, kind of thing, before you kind of let it go into the native space and then eventually. So I don't think there's any hard, fast rules. Now, most of the products that we are seeing now, we've actually seen them somewhere else. Most of the products that have been put here, I mean, well, I don't know. Let me not be so extreme. But a lot of the products that some of the fintechs are putting out, they are, let's say, adjustments or tweaks. You can look at other products and you can say they are pretty much the same. So today now to begin talking about sandboxing on of a product on let's say payments, I would wonder what's the value for that, because it's been tested in other places. Maybe you don't have M-Pesa here and you're trying it. Why do you need to put it in a sandbox? You already go to Kenya, go to Uganda, go to even other countries around the world and see what they're doing. Just get on a plane, and see the reality. So I think the issue is knowing how best to manage that space. And that's where judgment comes in. It is true, everybody calls themselves a disruptor. Everyone calls themselves it's like, I don't know, if you and I wanted to start up, forget fintech, let's talk music, right? You're a great musician, right? Yeah. So let's say you and I want to, what are we going to do? Are we going to call ourselves what? P Square, you think? No, that's not a good name because somebody else has taken it, right? So we'll call ourselves something, something aggressive, and I'll get dreadlocks or something, and you will shave your head and, and then we'll call ourselves something and, really create our niche. That's how artists behave. And unfortunately, that sort of culture has evolved into or has come into all the other spaces, the fintechs, etc. At the end of the day, we need to ask them, what problem are you resolving in society? That's how you figure out what it is. You know, I mean, the fact that the fact that you and I didn't call ourselves P Square doesn't mean that we are not playing music that is close to them. You understand what I'm saying? So, so we need to figure out which space you are in. After all, we need to know which radio station will be playing our music, right? So obviously, anyway, so I'm making the point that you need to calibrate the product based on what problem are they resolving. When they tell you they are disruptor, you'll say, okay, fine, you're disrupting. Let's see you. Let's see what exactly. So you sort of strip it down to the essentials and figure out what it is. Quite often we've done that. I'll give you an example that is maybe, we used to do this in the Central Bank of Kenya, and I loved it. Why? You had these young people like you that would come and tell us all these things, but half the time they didn't understand all the limits of their product. We've seen like 100 of the other products that looked like them, so we knew a lot more of these products. You understand what I'm saying? So we learned on the job. And for instance, there's this guy who brought this thing, and let's just call it whatever it is. And so it was a bit like, you call it a hackathon, right? So you bring your thing and you have like 20 of us in the room and you show us. Anyway, so at the end of it, I was there listening. And then we asked him, so how long does it take for your product to transfer the money? And he said, 45 seconds. I said, absolutely not. We cannot license it at 45 seconds. We closed the books and walked away. So he came back again and he had brought it down to 20. No, it's too long. He came back again. He came back 4 times. The 4th time, it was like 7 seconds. So he said, okay, fine. In the end, we are going to license you at 7. What was our standard? Do you know? 4 seconds. 4. Why? Because we know you can do it in that. And there's a reason for, there are technical reasons for 4 seconds. Visa takes 3.8 seconds to go, you run your Visa card and, it goes, whatever, for the transaction to go through, it's 3.8 on average. So we know the standard. You understand what I'm saying? But the poor guy didn't know. And in the end, he learned. And of course, he got there. So I'm making the point that some of these things you learn, and your judgment is shaped also by the experience that you have.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. I think that's the most that we can take this evening. We are really grateful to Dr. Patrick Njoroge. You agree with me that it's been a very interesting conversation. A lot of disagreements, but that's it. Thank you. So it's a very good learning point. So may I invite my Associate Dean, David West. Yes, that's it. Well, it doesn't...
Madam, I was wondering if we could have maybe 2 more questions.
People still have questions, and yes, he's willing to stay. So I don't know,
but questions.
So let's... well, because we have to go to other activities, I guess.
We have
the
to.
reason.
Okay,
yes. Fine. You know what happened? After this, I think we can still have some interaction where you bring your questions. So he's still here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So once again, on behalf of the Lagos Business School community, we want to say thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insights with us. And for giving us the wherewithal and knowledge around how to navigate these choppy waters and the black swans of the unknown unknowns and continue to think and move ahead. But I think what you said is important in the sense where we're all human and we're trying to do what's best, and within the parameters of what we have, we're going to make the best decisions based on what we have. And I think, thank you very much for schooling Professor Adi as well regarding the use of evidence as an academic, that we should always work with the data and not be guided by anything else. So on behalf of the community, we want to say, travel safe. And don't be a stranger, come back to us. And we've given you a little bit of history about LBS as well, which is a book that was written by our founding dean, which is not by chance, which is about our history and our legacy, and speaks to what you were talking about and what is our purpose. And let's always remember that we have a purpose to change the world and change Nigeria and Africa. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I love books.
I will hand this. So you have some reading material for the travel tomorrow. Yes. Okay.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll just put this down.
Okay.
And I see you're doing